Alright, finally, after about a week off of other gaming obligations, I'm getting back to onto Paris here. We are finally on turn 11. Turn 10 took a long time. I had a tied roll, so I had a lot of command points to work through. And as you can see from the giant stacks over here, some massive combats to do. And the Empire did finally fall. Napoleon III, I made the mistake of actually attacking with the French, and they lost with an army in which Napoleon III was present. And I failed the Empire roll after he lost that combat. So that resulted in some pretty heavy losses for the French. When the Empire falls, you have to roll for every single French strength point on the map, and it's a die roll involving the turn that the Empire falls. Since the Empire fell so late in the game, the only way that you could lose strength points was rolling a 6, and I rolled a ton of 6s for the French army, so all their corps were weakened. They got new leaders, mostly inferior to what they previously had. They got new army commanders, which, not all new army commanders. I think I only replaced, no, it might have been 2 or 3 of the army commanders. I think it was just 2 of them. Who were actually kind of a wash there. They got guys that still have 2+2 reroll army leaders and 1+1. Although I created a new army, the First Army of the Loire, which you can't see here, just a frame. These guys down here. No core yet. I need to get more strength points, although I'm going to have a ton to work with on this turn. This is actually the second turn after the arrival of the Empire, or the collapse of the Empire, and the French get 14 mobile strength points, which is their reserve strength points, but still 14 is a lot. And I've got 3 core in the available pool, so I can quickly equip them with some reserve strength point core. Basically, you want to at least put 1 regular infantry point in each corps that you have, just so that you don't get hit with that -2 penalty. It just becomes a -1 penalty when you've got at least 1 regular infantry strength point in with your reserve points. But anyway, the French army is reeling from this. They had fallen back from Verdun. Here you can see the Prussians have finally taken Metz, and I've got divisions up here working their way through these this chain of forts, which I'm just kind of doing really academically more than anything else at this point, because with the collapse of Metz, I built a supply depot there. Problem is, I've used my bypass, my 1 hex bypass capability for the French down here at Belfort, which in retrospect I probably should have used it for Verdun, because there's no connecting railroad between Metz and Verdun, but it makes a good point to use a supply depot chain, which, as you can see, I've done it here. And so, well, I guess since this is kind of the important fortress for getting a rail line to Paris, more so than Verdun, which isn't actually connected, to this western rail or eastern rail line. They are working on this fort here too, but they're running off of these chained supply depots, which is fine. That's one way that you can get a supply line to Paris. The problem is it doesn't get you a siege gun to Paris. You need an unimpeded, ideally 2 unimpeded rail lines to get both siege guns into play for Paris, because we are on, like I just showed you, turn 11. There's only 6 more turns left, well, 7 including this turn, which means the Prussians are really running out of time to siege and take Paris, which is their main avenue to actually winning the game. And, currently they're not all that close. That's probably 2 turns of movement away from Paris, working their way through the French army. The French army is not in particularly good shape at the moment, but I did have this massive combat, and I actually get a big initiative round with the Prussians. They get 8 points. So I moved 3 Prussian armies here and attacked the army of Alsace. Now, this was a 2-to-1 advantage. I had something like 64 Prussian strength points against like 25 French strength points. Totally outgunned in artillery. I had the cavalry advantage, and I used the column shift for the Prussians. So I was at 2-to-1 with the cavalry column shift, but they actually broke even on the artillery. Both sides were demoralized. Both sides lost 2 strength points. The Prussians had an opportunity to inflict 3 strength points, which, had they done so and the combat results ended up the same, they still would have lost, because they would have been even on demoralizations, even on strength points, in which case the battle goes to the defender, which were the French. So they got the column shift for the cavalry. What they lost out on was that they had a 2-column shift because there were 3 armies in the fight against 1 French army. So that was a 2-column shift left. They had another shift left because of the field fortifications that the French had. So at the end, they weren't even at the 2-to-1 advantage. They were onto the differential chart. Again, the French had a +4 or a +6 combat die roll modifier, 5 for their divisional commanders, and 2 for the artillery. They lost a point for reserve, whereas the Prussians had a +1 total combat die roll modifier. So, when you're on the differential chart and the French are outgunning you by a +6 differential, you're probably not going to inflict more casualties, especially if the French have 1 more reroll than you do. Actually, in this case, this was a rare case where the Prussians actually had more rerolls because they had a +2 reroll leader there at the Second Army. One of the princes that I can't ever replace, but don't really need to because he's pretty good. So the Prussians actually had the better reroll, but it didn't work out for them. One of their rerolls, they rolled Snake Eyes, and then the other one they rerolled the same roll that they had at the beginning. So it didn't help them. So the end result was the French had a D2 and the Prussians had a D3. But because they lost the same amount on the artillery roll, even though they had the same demoralizations, it went to strength point losses, and the French were the victors. So you had 3 Prussian armies, massively outgunning and outnumbering the French, lost. And that's really the difference that field fortifications make in the game. I don't know. And you can see this kind of looks like World War I, where you just have massive armies just hammering each other with very little result. I don't know if the designer intended there to be lots of strung. These are just stacked up cores here. I'm not sure I see any advantage to isolated Prussian cores hitting isolated French corps, all of which will have field fortifications. Because we're at the point of the game where the French aren't moving, so they could just spend all their command points and initiative points building field fortifications. And why would isolated corps attacking the French in field fortifications be any more successful than Prussians attacking giant stacks of armies attacking each other in field fortifications? It's going to be the same result. And so the idea is, for the Prussians, I just need to stop attacking and just move. And maybe that was the designer's intent all along, is don't spend time fighting because the attacker doesn't really have any chance of winning if there's field fortifications involved. Maybe they have a chance if there's not field fortifications. That was how the Empire fell, was that I made the mistake of attacking with the French because I thought, hey, the Prussians don't have field fortifications, so I've got a bigger army with the French. I tried to hit these isolated Prussian armies, backfired. So that's where we're at. The game grinds on. Will the Prussians ever make it to Paris? I don't know. If I just kind of try and sprint past the French, might be possible. We'll see.